Dust rises beneath pounding hooves. A Persian cavalry archer stands upright on a galloping horse, 1 foot locked into a stirrup.
Bow drawn, body steady despite the chaos.
The arrow releases.
Perfect aim,
Not because of strength, not because of skill alone.
but because of something small.
Attached to his boot.
A raised heel.
Here's the part history rarely tells you. One of the most iconic symbols of fashion
One of the most feminized objects in modern culture.
was invented for war, and for nearly a century.
High heels were worn almost exclusively by powerful men.
So how did a battlefield invention become a global fashion symbol?
And how did men abandon it, while women inherited it forever? This is the real story of how high heels conquered the world.
Ancient Persia.
More than 1,000 years ago, mounted archers were among the deadliest forces in warfare. But riding a horse at full speed while firing arrows created a massive problem.
Stability.
To shoot accurately, riders needed to stand in their stirrups, but flat boots slid forward. One slip meant losing balance.
And losing balance meant death.
The solution was brutally practical.
Add a raised heel to the boot.
Not for style,
Not for beauty, for control. The heel hooked into the stirrup, locking the rider's foot in place. Suddenly, mounted archers could stand, pivot, twist, and fire with precision.
the horse became a moving weapons platform, and the heel became military technology.
No one wore it to look good.
They wore it to survive. Fast forward to the late 1500s, Persian diplomats arrive in Europe.
Their boots catch attention immediately.
Tall,
Structured.
elevated heels. European aristocrats see something powerful, not just a shoe, a symbol. Riding boots represented wealth,
Military skill. Authority.
and European nobility loved symbols that separated them from ordinary people.
They adopted the heel almost instantly. But here's the twist. Most European nobles barely rode horses.
The heel was no longer functional.
It became visual power, a declaration that said, I belong to the ruling class, France.
17th century,
King Louis XIV.
one of the most powerful rulers in European history.
Also,
Not very tall, Louis understood something critical about image.
power is partly performance. He embraced high heels aggressively,
Not small ones, massive ones.
sometimes 4 inches high. But he went further. He dyed the soles red.
And then he did something brilliant. Only nobles favored by him were allowed to wear red heels. Shoes became status badges.
Walking into the royal court wearing red heels meant one thing. You were close to the king.
High heels were no longer military gear.
They were political theatre, and they were worn almost entirely by men. Then something changed.
The Enlightenment. European culture began shifting toward reason, science, and practicality.
Men started rejecting flashy fashion. They wanted to appear rational,
Serious, efficient. High heels suddenly looked excessive,
decorative.
impractical. Men abandoned them, gradually at first, then completely. But fashion never leaves a vacuum.
Women began adopting heels more widely.
At first, it was imitation. Wearing heels meant borrowing the power and authority once associated with men. But over time,
Designers reshaped the heel.
higher arches,
Slimmer shapes, more exaggerated silhouettes. The heel transformed from a symbol of dominance into a symbol of femininity.
and that transformation stuck.
Today, high heels are seen as fashion icons, symbols of elegance.
Style, confidence. Most people assume they were always designed that way, but hidden inside every heel is a completely different origin. War,
Power, status, social engineering. A piece of battlefield equipment became royal propaganda.
royal propaganda became gendered fashion, and fashion reshaped cultural identity.
The next time you see a pair of high heels,
Remember the mounted archer standing in his stirrups, the king using fashion as political control,
the moment men abandoned them and women transformed them,
because fashion is rarely just fashion,
it is history.
redesigned.
And sometimes,
The most elegant object in a modern wardrobe was once a weapon built for survival.